Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Understories with me, your host, Lindsay Fowler. I hope you all had a lovely chocolate-filled Easter as well. This week, we're speaking to Susan Eva Gerg. She's the founder of Happy Homes, which will now be soon to be transitioning into her eponymous interior design studio. She's German-born, but she's based in New York, and her approach is an art-forward one, which places the art in a space as the first port of call. This was interesting to me because in my experience, art consultants tend to be brought in later in the design process to add the finishing touches, as it were. But for Susan, it's not so. To her, it's crucial to consider the art from the beginning of the design process, not only because it enhances it, but also because it deepens the client's story and connection to their space overall. We get into how she's running her business, the power of delegating to others, and how personal passion is a core part of selling her service. Also, how essential boundaries are and her way of balancing business and creativity. Before we get started, if you like this podcast, please give us a rating or review wherever you're watching or listening to this. Tell a friend, and don't forget to subscribe so that you get notified about future episodes, which drop every other Tuesday. And now, here's Susan. Suzanne, it's so nice to have you on the podcast. Thanks for coming on Understories. For people who aren't familiar with your work, can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit more about Happy Homes and the work that you do.
Well, first, thank you for having me. And
Pleasure.
My name is Susan Eva Gerg. I currently reside in New York City, and my business is currently still called Happy Homes Design. But we are transitioning into using my name to make it more personalized and unique, actually. Yeah.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, that it's more of like working with you directly as opposed to sort of a
Exactly.
nameless
It's been
person.
Evolvement of the business and how I see it and how much more the unique perspective comes into play, and that's actually what people are looking for that are reaching out to me. So it's an evolvement. So we talk about it a little bit.
Yeah. So what kind of work do you do? So I know you said you do interiors, but talk a little bit more about the kind of your specialization within interiors.
Yeah, so we started out with residential design, and when I started my business in, I think, 2018, I took every project I could get to get my hands on the project, to get my feet wet, to figure out my focus. And now we have reached a point where we focus on interior design with art in mind. It has really become a significant differentiator to create more meaningful, sophisticated, and significant spaces for our clients by bringing in the art factor.
Can you say more about that? How? Because I mean, when we were talking initially before, it was like in my mind, I always think of the art as the sort of the extra bit when people are doing interiors, as part of the whole package. But you lead with the art.
Yes, I would call it maybe like an art first approach because we don't treat art as an afterthought. We always say art is an asset, not an afterthought. And because it really makes a difference in a space, it helps us create the story and tell the story of our clients and inspire them and also remind them of where they're coming from. So if we would only treat art, at the end of our process, it always feels a little bit tagged on and more decorative, not thought out. We really want to create this, what we call Gesamtkunstwerk in German.
Oh, yeah. Can you describe the translation for that? Because I love that word, but I can never remember the translation for it.
That's a tricky one. Yeah. So, I mean, the way we see it, right? Like usually in design, it's form and function. For us, the third part that comes into play is the artistic expression. And that's when, the extra 10% really come in to make it special and unique for our clients. So for us, Gesamtkunstwerk is when everything comes together perfectly. So it's one piece of art. It's not secluded. It's not tagged on. So that's where the Gesamtkunstwerk comes from.
I love that.
A lot of times it's also by making it part of the process, we can really create the dialogue between the design and the art in this space. And it's not forgotten. It's not, something we do at the end. It really taps from the beginning into our client stories. And we are not talking about just beautiful interiors, but really meaningful interiors we are creating with them. And what also comes into play is the budget, right? So usually at the end, there's nothing left. So if we plan the budget for the artwork in the beginning into the process, we can guarantee a much more successful result. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's funny because I think like art and design has always been this like two sides of the same kind of coin, right? They've always worked together. But I always feel like art has kind of been elevated and design has been always kind of put into the more practical, right? But in this, actually, the way that you're doing this, you are actually using art in a form of practicality because it's actually helping to inform the design. It's informing the storytelling for the client. How did you land upon this sort of approach? It's really interesting.
So I think there have been two significant moments that really kept pointing me at this is what you should be focusing on. This is what you can bring to the world and to your clients. One is that when we started working with every client, that came to us, the projects that included art where the client already had a piece of art that we were able then to showcase, make a focal point, and really stand out, those projects had much more impact. They were much more successful from my point of view, but also from the client point of view. And then also projects where we started sourcing art for clients and having those conversations with the clients. We have a whole questionnaire where we go through and really tap into what it could be the client wants on their walls or standing up as a sculpture. So we have really a significant process that helps them as well understand what they are looking for, because most of the times they don't. And by working with those clients and seeing those projects flourish and be so different than, you're just your neighbor's home that's just beautiful and comfortable, it really kept pointing at the significance of the art, and that needs to be part of all of our projects. And then personally, there's a story as well, because for my own home, I'm also looking for art. In New York City, you move a lot. You're always making your own home beautiful and the best it can be. And then I stumbled across a piece of art that I couldn't stop thinking about. It's called Balloon Concerto Piano from Federico Picci, I think. That's how it's pronounced. Italian name, I don't know if I say it right. And this piece of art that now lives in my bedroom, after contemplating a long time about getting it, it had such an impact on me personally that I could not bring it into my work and into my process, because I'm more of a serious kind of person. I don't know. I'm like very, perfectionist, German, planning, very serious. People wouldn't say I'm like a lighthearted personality. Even we're laughing right now. But in general speaking, right?
We're allowed to laugh. We are allowed to laugh. Yeah.
But then this large scale piece of art, you can envision it's a black piano in a very traditional, beautiful room, very sparse room. And out of the piano, they're coming blush pink balloons. They're floating out. I'm not a pink kind of girl, and those balloons, they come floating out. They create this lightheartedness, the airiness, the not so heavy, taking things so seriously. And every morning I wake up to it, it reminds me of that. And I almost feel like it's filling a part in my soul that's missing, that I don't have, but I'm looking for. So now when I get to wake up, I see this and it makes me make myself feel lighter and approach the day with a lighter mindset. And I wouldn't have that without the piece of art. So I also hang it across from my bed, not like most people do above, because I want to see it when I wake up. So it's all about the context, of course. And this
And you never
really
get tired of looking at it? You never
no,
every morning you look up and you think, oh, I love that thing every day.
like I need to remind myself to be a little more light and a little
I
more
love that.
fun and not so serious. So that experience alone really taught me that, we can make a bigger impact if we bring pieces like this into people's spaces, because it makes a difference for their life.
I think it's so interesting. So, I mean, how did you, why interiors? How did you get into this in the first place? Because I mean, when we met in New York last year, almost a
Yes.
year ago, but we've known each other for a little while. But, you were talking about, you were on the visa lottery to move to the United States. And so you managed, we I remember when we were talking about it, I was like, but no one ever gets that. And you're like, well, they do because I go.
That's right.
So were you, I can't remember what you said, but were you doing, you studied interiors, when you were in the States, right?
I
You didn't study it
actually,
in Germany.
no, actually, my background is in graphic design, advertising, creative direction. So I always had a thing for interior design. I was always rearranging my brother's and my bedroom that we shared, like always making the best of it. But back then, where I grew up in East Germany, there wasn't a career in interior design. It just didn't exist. So the closest next thing was graphic design. And that's how I jumped into, the creative industry. That's how I started out. I studied, I evolved to, more of the creative part, becoming an art director, and then also studying in the States partly.
That's right.
And that really got me. I knew I needed to be in New York, the mecca of advertising back then.
Yeah.
I guess.
Madison Avenue.
Yeah. And somehow it all, I don't want to say fell into place, but I guess it was meant to be. I played the green card lottery and was one of the lucky ones. Yes.
Yeah.
And that's how I made my way to New York. But that didn't mean that my passion for interior design wasn't still there and bubbling up. In New York, you move a lot. Rents go up, you move. You want to experience a different neighborhood. So every time making my own space new and fresh and comfortable, and even having visitors, the super commenting, oh, how nice my place is,
Yeah.
So all this kept bubbling up while I was successfully working in advertising on Madison Avenue. But eventually I had to take the leap and quit my corporate job and went for interior design. And I started my own project, started to work with, friends and ex-colleagues while also studying interior design, in tandem, both things.
Yeah. That's so brave to do that, especially when you're so successful in advertising. Was it just one of those things where you felt that you just kind of had a calling to do it? You had to do it. Like it was an itch that couldn't be scratched unless you made the leap, or?
Yeah, I would say, it's twofold. One is the advertising industry is very demanding in terms of, giving your life to it, so to speak.
Yeah.
And then also, as I said, it kept bubbling up. And I don't like to live with what ifs, even coming to the States and like applying to the green card and doing all this.
Yeah.
If an idea in my head keeps coming up and it keeps pushing me and surfacing, I don't want to live with what ifs. So I had to go for it. There's no way around. Otherwise, what are you going to do? You're just going to keep thinking about it?
Yeah.
No, I had to take the plunge. And I had this time, I actually quit in January. So staying put and thinking about it and like analyzing how I want to see myself in my next years.
Yeah.
And the advertising world just wasn't working with that anymore. And that passion for interior design won, I guess.
It won.
It won. And here we are.
And here you are. So this was in 2018 is what you said. So you started in 2018. So, what's been the most surprising thing that's happened? I mean, in the 6 years since you've started?
How much not design is. Running your own business, you know,
How much more
interior design,
admin?
the perception of people is often, oh, you get to play with all the colors and the fabrics and you pick some nice pieces. But being an entrepreneur and running your own business and building your own business and doing all the things, wearing all the hats, I would say it's maybe 82% business, and the rest of the
Yeah.
percent is actually the design, which
Yeah.
people, they wouldn't think that, but that's the reality.
No.
So
Yeah.
it's really fun to work on the designs, but you know, presenting the designs, building relationships with vendors, always being on top of things, on developments, on materials,
Yeah.
on technology, keeping
Yeah.
up with all of this and running a business from finances to marketing.
Yeah.
It takes up a lot. So you
Yeah.
embrace the good times where you actually get to design and make the clients happy, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a common thing, right? That when people, especially creative entrepreneurs, they start a business because they want to do the thing that they're most passionate about. They want to
Right.
design, but it's such a shock, I think, to get into the actual business of it and then realize that you have to find clients and you have to have some systems and you have to be able to market yourself. I mean,
Yeah.
and I think also because no one's ever really trained in this, particularly if they come from a creative background. It's all about the output. It's all about the creativity.
Yeah.
How did you go about learn? I mean, I know because we know each other through the Future Pro group way back in the
Mhm.
day, but was that the main sort of thing that kind of got you on the sort of the path for understanding more about the business side, or did you do more self-study? How did you go about that?
I wish I would have found the Future Pro group earlier because it
Right.
really fast tracked me in a lot of things in business. I think I've
Mm.
been like 2 or 3 years part of it. But in the
Yeah.
beginning, you're just trying to figure it out. You're wasting
Yeah.
time on creating a logo and a website instead of, you know, finding clients. I'm like, I
Yeah.
wish I wouldn't have done that. But
Yeah. Everyone
especially
always
with
cares about
the,
how it looks. It's
yeah,
like
in
how it
the
looks
end,
first. Yeah.
but I do. That's the problem. I'm like
Yeah.
so still in the
Yeah.
graphic design and art direction, creative direction. I
Yeah.
wanted to make it perfect. You just figure things out as you go, honestly,
Mm.
and it's hard if you don't have friends or people around that also build their own business or run their own business
Mm.
if they are still in the corporate world and I have other problems to deal with. So a lot of times you're
Yeah.
in your head trying to figure out how to do things. A lot of times you don't even know what you should be doing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
finding the pro group was really an accelerator to
Mm.
get on the right track, know what I should be doing, and actually doing it as well. And then, not to
Mm.
forget, in between, we had COVID and the pandemic. So at
Oh
that
God. Yeah.
time, it was literally just about surviving, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
business wise and life,
Yeah. Yeah.
life
Business
wise, you
wise and
know,
life. Yeah.
as
Yeah.
well.
What would you say is the one of the biggest mistakes that you think that you made? I always think it's really interesting to ask this question because I think we don't often talk about the mistakes that we make in our businesses because those are the best learning opportunities, right? Those are the things that always teach us the most in the most painful way. But for you,
Yes.
like what were some of the mistakes that you've made that I know you're saying maybe not spend so much time on the logo and how things looked, but is there anything else that you would have maybe taken a different trajectory? Would you have sort of not spend so much time on something else that you would have done differently if you could do it again?
Many mistakes.
We've all been there.
So one of the big ones is really that mindset of you got to do it all on your own, not outsourcing and finding help outside, like
Yeah,
accounting or
yeah,
technical drawings or, you know, assistance,
yeah.
all those kind of things. Because you're starting a business and, you know, you only have so much to invest, you're thinking, oh, I just do it myself and I'm going to
Yeah,
save
it's
money.
cheaper. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
but it's actually going to
But
cost you time. It's going to cost you so much time. And then also, you're not great at everything. You should focus on what you're great at and what you want to be doing.
Yeah.
I don't want to be doing the numbers. I mean, I should know my numbers, but still, outsourcing those things really makes a difference. And I'm still learning. I'm still not super comfortable with it. And I always need to push myself over the edge. But when I do, it lifts the burden off my shoulders.
Yeah.
It makes such a difference just not to have to deal with those things you don't love and now would take you 2 days to do, and someone else, I don't know, 2 hours to get it done for you. It makes a big difference. And then another thing, I think, it left my mind. So now another mistake left my mind. I think they always say the imposter syndrome, right? But being not confident and comparing yourself to other people in the industry. So for me, a lot of times there's so many interior designers and they all have this traditional path in education. And I'm coming in here, second career, still have a background that's very visual and very artistic and creative.
Yeah.
But not having the same level of education, I used to see as a disadvantage, but now my perspective, my point of view, making my own path, I almost think it's an advantage. They are stuck in what everyone else has been doing. They have been like all studying it the same way and whatnot, all using the same programs. But now I've come to change and see that my perspective, my point of view on things, and not having it done traditionally is actually an advantage and brings more to the table and something new to the table.
I love that, because I mean, I'm the same. Like I have a history of art degree, right? Like I don't come from this from a business point of view, and I think I really resonate with that, because there's a I don't have an MBA, and so I'm like, oh, I can't do the thing I can do well because I don't know enough, or I haven't had this traditional experience. But you're right. There is something really refreshing about someone who's learned through doing, who's learned through experience that you can't replicate through education. And but how did you overcome the imposter syndrome? I mean, because that is a sort of a thing, right? Because if you retrain in something, especially later on in your career, I mean, you really feel like you're starting from scratch, but you're like in your 30s. You know what I mean? You're like, oh, crap. Like,
I would not say I have overcome it. It's a constant battle. Yes, I don't think that goes away. That goes away. We just either need to remind ourselves or have people around us that remind us that the way we are doing it is valuable. And what I also try to do for myself is not to look outside so much, not to look at others so much.
That's really important.
I don't even go on Instagram and look at other interior designers. I'm like, no, I'm going to do my own thing. And I think the last 2 or 3 years, I've been really good about not to look left and right, but do my own thing.
And that has helped, you think, in terms of confidence in your own abilities? And that's really interesting.
Because you're not comparing yourself. It's also, how can you compare a unique point of view or like an artistic expression? I see interior design in itself as an artistic expression and, a creative endeavor that needs to be unique. It's everyone does it differently. And that's also a reason why I'm about to change the name of my business, because now it's about my point of view. When I started with Happy Homes Design, I was like, I want to do it for the people. They should have a happy home, And it has been really sticky and resonated with people, actually. Like they love the name. It puts a smile on their face, but it's not representing where I am and where I'm going right now. So that's why this transition is in action, actually.
That's an interesting point as well, is that like you start a business and how it needs to sometimes transition, and sometimes that means like changing the name and managing the sort of the brand development. I mean, Was it when you decided to do that, did you think, no, it's time, it's like it's my turn to kind of put my name on these things? And because I mean, obviously when you're doing it, it's a collaborative thing, right? It's not like you're like, this is what you have to have,
No,
you know,
yeah.
and clients were working with you, but it's like, but they come to you for what you do as opposed to.
Hmm. It's actually, I tried to find a different name first, not my name. So again, the
Oh,
imposter
really?
syndrome, I ended up using my
Ah,
name or getting there, but it was also
yeah,
the process. I was thinking and conceptualizing and brainstorming new names for the business,
yeah.
and I wasted so much time on it. I cannot even tell you, months, maybe
Well,
even
maybe
a
you
year
had
or
to go through
something.
that process or something to come actually
Exactly.
come back full circle, you know?
Exactly. I just knew that Happy Homes wasn't serving anymore the clientele we will be
Right,
serving and we are
right.
serving now. It served us well in the beginning. It was perfect to get the foot
Yeah,
in the door.
yeah,
So it was a process again to land on using my own name and building that confidence and tapping
yeah,
into that, and now not wavering from there.
yeah.
It's also
Are you?
about putting the point of view out. Right now, I have
Yeah,
been writing some content, and some articles have been
yeah,
featured in some media outlets, and my name is on it. So I want to make
yeah,
sure that people, connect that, and it's valuable for the
yeah.
business and building that new future for our
Mm. Mm.
our endeavor.
Um, that makes a lot of sense. It's an interesting one though, because then how do you manage the messaging for that, and how the people that come to that you've attracted up until this point to Happy Homes, you know, is there a case where you're sort of having to re-educate clients or change your messaging now because it's obviously they're not working? Like how are you going to go about doing that? I'm really curious.
Obviously, the messaging needs to change, and also that we are more honing in on our art focus and combining art and interior
Yeah,
design, which we haven't done so in the
yeah,
beginning, or it wasn't that clear. It just,
yeah,
was an evolving process. So with existing clients, that's no problem. I mean, they know us, they
yeah,
work with us
yeah,
continuously, they go with us through the changes. They're excited also
yeah,
about bringing art into their homes, which they might not have thought about before. So
yeah,
we're less worried about the existing clients. They're on
mm,
board. They know me. We have built a relationship.
yeah,
Um, it's more about, the new leads, the new clients we're going to be
yeah,
working with. And I have found that connecting with them on a personal level and meeting them at networking events, at galleries, at
yeah,
being out and about, they connect with me as a person. So there's
mm,
no discrepancy between me as a person and the business or what I do, because it's not
yeah,
just my job, it's who I am.
yeah,
So
yeah,
there's no problem between using my name and then
yeah.
it also being
Because
a
obviously they
business.
didn't know you before, so it's like
Yeah.
now they're actually, and it probably works better because it's sort of they're seeing you within the
Hmm.
right context of where.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting that you're doing this as an art, as an art forward design practice, because there's a really clear, and everyone always talks about like sales and marketing and being where your client is and all that. But for you, there's a really clear place where your clients are. I mean, that's
Yes.
in some ways there's some real power in that, because if you know that you go to events or to networking events that are art focused, there your clients will be there. I
Hmm.
mean, that's I think I know that you've taken the route of going to the art forward side is because partly because it's your personal passion and all that, which makes a lot of sense. But it also makes it much easier in terms of selling the business to people because you can find your
That's
clients
what you
fairly
say.
easily.
That's what you
You're
say.
like, hello.
It's still the same process, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there are all kinds of people running around the art galleries too. It's not,
Yeah, of
that,
course. Of course.
yes, it's
There for
still
the free
about,
white wine.
exactly. It's all about relationship building. But now
Yeah.
that you say, I have actually built a really good relationship. I don't know if I mentioned that before to you,
Mm.
that project we had in October, November here in Soho, New York City.
In the apartment that you did.
Yes, the apartment. That was such a great experience, transforming this white box gallery into a New York City apartment with furniture, with rugs, creating a whole sleeping loft with paint and wallpaper. We even brought in a fireplace and really inviting people in and letting them have this experience was so fascinating and such an endeavor to take and make happen. But those kind of things, I think there's still a lot to be done in the market, bringing people closer to art and not having them hesitant about walking into a gallery and not thinking they are an art collector. You know, like there's a lot of hesitancy and still like the cliche thinking that you cannot walk into a gallery and look at art and people will, you know, not talk to you because you're probably maybe not their right clientele or something like that. There's still a lot to be broken open in the art market, and bringing that knowledge and that confidence of everyone wanting a piece of art for themselves and helping them to get that, because a lot of the clients also don't know, like, where do we start? How do we get a piece of art? Where do we look? And how does it all work? Like, there's a lot
I also think
educating to be done.
Yeah, I was going to say, it feels like there probably is a lot of educating because, you know, the average punter, whether or not they have the budget for it, won't really know where to source good art that's not going to be mass produced, or, you know, and also something of quality, you know, because there's a lot of cat out there too. And so to have someone who can help kind of guide them and help them and shape them around pieces that resonate with them, but are also that have value to them and not necessarily are, you know, super expensive. Because I think even when we were talking before, you were saying, like, you know, even finding really beautiful prints is that's still, I mean,
can be good.
Go ahead.
The prints can be good entry drug to collecting art. You know,
I'm
that's
very
a good
much into a
starting
print.
point.
I'm a print buyer.
Yes. But there is something to be said that a lot of people think that art needs to be expensive to have value. But especially in our case, by not just seeing it as an investment piece financially, bringing it into your home, it needs to fulfill different levels of impact. You know, it's not just the cost point. So it can be someone that your friend painted and it just is perfect for your space and you feel connected, or reminds you of that person. So it's not about how expensive the piece of art is. It's more how it connects with you and what kind of stories it holds and what you want to be reminded of, or how you want to feel. But then obviously there's also, you know, the economical value and the emotional value. So it's not mutually exclusive. So even if you have a huge budget and want to buy a piece of art that grows in value over time, you also want to display it the best way possible. You know, if you invest so much in your piece of art, you want to make sure it's standing out in your space and it speaks to your space and it can be the best it can be because you spend so much money on it. Why wouldn't you do that? That would be just such a waste.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. I keep thinking about what you were saying about how you never match things to the paintings, and how, like, the post
Yes.
and about how, you know, it's about making sure that the art stands on its own and that it doesn't fade into the background. And I think I really love that.
Yeah, it's almost a no-no. Like, don't come at me with wanting to match the colors of the art to the pillows or the curtains or something like that. That's not what we are doing.
No.
I mean, obviously, or maybe you want it to clash. Sometimes you want it to be harmonious, but sometimes you also want to create contrast and tension, you know? So we cannot, like, look at art just for the colors or the shapes. We need to look at it, what it does to us and what it does to a space. So that's why we cannot just match
No.
the color scheme to the art. That just
No.
doesn't make
Gross.
sense.
No.
Yeah. It's gross. See, you said it. I didn't say it.
I said it here first. It's gross. Don't
Yes.
do it. I was going to ask you a question, but I've kind of forgotten what it was. I was thinking more about like the process that you go through with clients. I'm really interested in, because it is such an emotional thing, right? It's like how, if they come to you and they don't have a collection already or pieces that they like already, you said you have some sort of a questionnaire that you go through with them that kind of helps kind of like pull out stories, things that they maybe that they want to have reflected in the art that you choose. How does that process work? 'Cause it must be so personal for people.
Yes. And I mean, in general, interior design is a very personal service.
Yeah.
You're like almost going through their drawers.
Yeah. Someone once said that they were like having a conversation, I think, with the lady who was waxing their eyebrows, and they were asking her what they did. And she was like an interior designer. And they were like, it's kind of weird what we do, isn't it? We like go into people's homes and like
you see it all.
You see everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but from you, bringing in the art side of it, that you're seeing everything, plus you're seeing a much more kind of intangible, emotional side of the client. Can you talk a little bit more about how that all works?
So sometimes if they don't know at all what they want, we just look at what are we trying to do to the space. So I have an example. We did a kitchen makeover. Just wanted this person, she lives in a small New York City apartment. She's gonna keep living there, but the kitchen really needed a makeover, a refresh.
Yeah.
Because she didn't feel like she wants to go in there and enjoy cooking, but she actually enjoys cooking. So we wanted to bring back that excitement, that feeling, like almost being a home chef again, enjoying the cooking. And so what we did there is we looked at, okay, what did cooking or what does food mean to her? What are kind of spaces and places that remind her of good food? Or also food is, a gateway to almost always to family experiences and coming together and celebrating and entertaining. Yeah. And in this case, there was a restaurant that she really loved in her neighborhood, but it didn't exist anymore. But that was always a place where she enjoyed food and celebrated food and, felt at home as well. Yeah. So what we did there, we were seeking out maybe some painting or photograph or something that has to do with that restaurant. And then we found this artist with this really beautiful, intricate line drawings. And there was one of that restaurant, actually.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. And, we wanted 2 pieces. So we found a second one that spoke the same language and she also knew and still existed. So in this case, we brought in those prints, which are not super expensive, but they had meaning. They connected the love of food with now her space. And by also, painting the ceiling bright and yellow and bringing in fresh air and fresh life into her kitchen, and now displaying those pieces of art above her stove just made all the difference. So that's how we kind of ended up in this case with finding something that resonates. And I think that's a good example of how this process can go.
That's really lovely. So, as we've said, this is like, this is a podcast technically about creative business. So even though I think I'm a frustrated creative in that sense, and I love asking everybody about their processes and how they do things. Yeah. I am curious about the business side of creativity, because I feel like there's so many people who have to, like, as we were saying before, it's like balance the business side with the creativity. And, if you're lucky, you get to do that 18% of the creative bit, and the 88% is all the other stuff.
Yes.
How do you, as a creative, how do you balance creativity and business in your day-to-day working life?
When you say balance, are you asking me about how I dedicate time to certain parts, or?
Yeah. How do you manage to negotiate the requirements for both?
Mm.
That, you can't just focus on one and have it be fine. It takes, when you're running when you're a creative entrepreneur, you have to kind of span all the things, wear many hats. So for you, how do you wear those many hats?
I think you have to set boundaries, and you have to, excuse me, at least try to create a schedule that works
Mm.
for you, and keep yourself accountable to, there are always things
Yeah.
that will happen, and
Sure.
not
Yeah.
allow for the schedule to happen.
Yeah.
But it's, I dedicate certain days to only be certain things, ideally, to have
Mm.
meetings and to have calls. And then usually Mondays and Tuesdays, they're my super productive days where I map
Mm.
out the week and make sure I get everything on the schedule, what needs to be done.
Mm.
And Sundays, I guess Sundays are for self care and self
Yeah.
development. So
Yeah.
I really try to schedule the times and make sure that, we are not just getting caught up in the design and the
Doing.
creative part,
Yeah.
because we also
Yeah.
need to take care of the back end. A lot of it's also communication, like so many emails.
Yeah.
I don't know where they're all coming from. Like, so
I know.
many emails.
You
But
send an
also,
email to respond and another one comes back.
yeah,
You're like,
but
no.
it's not just clients, it's also all the people that help us make
Sure.
things happen, from, the trade
Yeah.
vendors and the contractors and
Mm.
paint companies. You constantly need to keep in touch with them and know what's going on. So
Mm.
I try to not let those kind of maybe administrative things take over, and really limit the time, or the times I'm going to look at emails, for example, and
Yeah.
not like have it a constant thing. And I also set very strict boundaries with clients as well. So, we have business hours, and they're not
No
to,
WhatsApp.
no WhatsApp, no calling me unless it's an emergency.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's kept into a system so we can make sure that it works for our mind and our processes as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's, I mean, would you say it's because, what am I trying to say here? I think, you and I both know lots of creative entrepreneurs that, struggle with these kind of things, saying no to clients or having some boundaries with clients, or, those kind of things that, I mean, we all have, you know, even, yeah, definitely myself have that at times. But do you think it's because, like, you've been, this is a second career for you, in a sense, you kind of gone through a career which was heavily demanding, probably very heavily demanding from a client side. Do you ever think that in some ways that's maybe informed how you structured this business, because you were kind of very conscious of how quickly things could get
Perhaps
sidelined?
I don't want to say that all the systems and processes have always been there. It's also been
Oh,
evolving and
sure.
getting
Of
there.
course. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I do, well, now that you mentioned that, with, the demanding times before, they
Mm.
definitely have made me more resilient in
Mm.
that sense. And then also, it teaches you that you can be, actually, like, you can be creative on the spot. That obviously the inspiration will always happen. You walk into a store or something, and
Yeah,
you're actually sourcing something for one client project, but then you see something that fits to the other one. Obviously, you're
yeah,
not letting that go. You're still
yeah,
embracing that creative spark that's happening in the moment.
yeah.
But I think, yeah, it teaches you that, or taught me the past, that you just have to get started. You're always gonna get the results that
Mm.
you want to be getting. Like, if you don't tap into that creative moment when you scheduled it, so to speak,
Mm. Yeah.
um, it's always a starting point. It doesn't mean that you always gonna have the whole result, but
Mm.
we cannot just wait
Wait for
for
the
the
muse to
creativity
strike.
to come us to strike us, you know? Like
Yeah.
people say
Yeah.
that all the time, but if you don't set the conditions for it to come to
Mm.
you, then when is it going to come? And it's going to mess up the rest of your day or, you
Yeah.
know, your schedule. I
Yeah.
think
I think it's
creating the
a,
conditions is important.
yeah. Is
And
it Stephen
maybe having
Pressfield that does that? Like Stephen, you know Stephen Pressfield. He wrote, I think,
which one?
the War of Art. Do you know Stephen Pressfield? He wrote the book called The War of Art, and his
Yes.
thing is about showing up, and
Yes.
like even if like the
Exactly.
muse isn't gonna, and just fight through it. But
Yeah.
I think but I don't think creativity in its sense has been put on this pedestal, and this like the ability to have the muse come and like, but it actually doesn't work that way. You have to create space for it.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to set it up for it to happen.
Yeah,
And
it's
that
yeah,
comes back to your surroundings, setting them up to happen or not being distracted or being inspired, you know? A
yeah,
lot of people forget how much that affects as well how we think and what we can
yeah.
focus on or what are we distracted by.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Like when your desk is messy, like mine is now.
Yeah.
I'm like, ooh, I'm not very focused today. Um, so last big question for you. What does success look like for you?
Hmm. You mean personally or business wise? I mean,
Well, they're one and the same, aren't they, so to speak?
a little bit. I
Yeah.
mean, it's not it's not what it's nice to be published or, you know, being quoted and stuff like
Mm.
that. What it comes down to is really seeing the clients in their spaces. And, you know, if they say things like, I don't want to leave my home, like that's just like, I don't want to leave my home anymore. I'm just gonna, you know, hang out here. And instead of sleeping in my bed, I want to sleep on the couch because this living room is so much
So
nicer now.
wonderful. Yeah.
Yes. So the transformation we are able to give them to their life just by changing and elevating their surroundings
Mm.
is amazing. I mean,
Mm.
every time it happens, you know, every time you finish a project or even in between projects when you get an email from a client it's like the rug came and it's so amazing. I see how it's transforming and they, you know, like seeing their excitement by changing their environment
Yeah.
is just amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. I really
And
understand that.
personally, I mean, I just
Yeah.
want to work more on the design part and also
Mm.
educating people more about art and,
Mm.
you know, really bridge that gap between art and design and making
Mm.
it almost mandatory that there needs to be art. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I should be sharing that, but there is this, I think, was it 70s or 80s, this commercial for, I think, Wendy's, where they scream, those older ladies, where's the beef?
Oh
Where's the
yeah.
beef?
Yeah. It's under the pickle.
So,
Where's the pickle? It's under the beef.
yes.
Yeah.
So now in my head, my tagline is like, where's the art? So I want every single person who thinks about their home and transitioning it and making it more
Yeah.
their own. I just like automatically want everyone to think, where's the art? Because it has
Where's the
been
art?
become such an integral part, crucial part of the
Mm.
design and their life. I just want
Mm.
everyone to ask that. Like that's like a crazy mission,
Yeah.
but that's kind of
No,
like my
it's
my
true
north
though.
star. I want them to ask, even if I'm not the designer, if they're working with someone, I want
Yeah.
to them to ask their designer, where's the art? And not
Where's the
at the
art?
end of the project, but you know, in the beginning and like bringing it in. So
Yeah.
that's my secret mission.
Well, it's not so secret anymore. You've now told
Well, now it's on a
12
podcast.
people. No, I was just thinking though, because like in our apartment here, we've got painting that used to hang above my grandparents' kitchen, and it's of this very, very overweight woman. It's quite an abstract picture, but it's kind of an
Mhm.
overweight woman who's sort of reclining. I need to get it reframed. But I was just thinking about when you're talking about this, and actually that painting, I love it. It has so many amazing memories for me. It's like no one in my family wanted it after my grandparents died. I was like, hell yes, I will take this. This is so wonderful. But I think it's like, it has, it has no financial value, but it means so much to me because it's so resonant of my time with them. And also it's like, it's sitting next to my dining table. There's a sort of a odalesque, is that right? Yeah, an odalesque kind of vibe to it, and it has that kind of
Yeah.
feeling about enjoyment and food and all that kind of stuff. So
Exactly. Yeah.
but there's something there with that you wouldn't want to. Yeah, I would never want to take it down away from my kitchen. It's always been in the kitchen, if that makes sense. So it's like the room
Yeah.
for it. So anyway, so we always finish with some quick fire questions. So it's just for fun. Like everyone, it's just for fun. So let's see. I've got 5 that I kind of look at. So let's see. If your design business had a mascot, what would it be and why?
What?
So I've had people say before it would be a golden retriever, for example, because we're like super excited about what we're doing.
Okay. I think because so much of the business is also me, I think it would have to be a surfboard.
A surfboard?
Because going through the process of design, there are ups and downs. There's always something going wrong, a lot of things going right. And it's like catching the waves of life as well. It's like up and down, but when you get the good ride in the end, everything is okay, even if you get washed over before. And it's also a personal passion of mine. So I think, it's gotta be the surfboard, even if it sounds weird for
no, it's amazing. Also,
business.
No, it sounds amazing because also it screams resilience, doesn't it? Because you get knocked down and you have to get back up again and catch that next wave. I love that. What's your favorite material to work with and why? It's probably hard to ask a designer that because, to be fair, there's probably billions of materials they love. But is there anything that stands out to you at the moment that you're really loving?
It's also always changing, right? I mean,
Sure.
I'm not a fan of trends. I'm always against trends. I'd rather create timeless spaces.
Yeah.
But materials go in and out. I can tell you what I hate, which material.
Let's do that then. Which one do you hate and why?
Boucle, go away.
Ooh.
No, but I think in terms of material, if we are thinking about, I think one of the most transformative materials we use or tools we use would be paint. It's just so transformative. Paint can make such a difference. Even if you have the same furniture, paint is a huge transformer. So I'm going to say paint.
I like that. Yeah. Last one. I'll give you another one. Well, I think I know the answer to this, but I was going to say form or function, but it's probably Gesamtkunstwerk, actually. So it's form and function
Gesamtkunstwerk.
and aesthetic. Yeah.
And artistic expressions, yes.
Yeah. Is there an interior studio that you admire or an architecture studio that you admire that and why?
So yes, no. The answer is no, because I'm not looking left and right. I'm creating my own path. Yeah.
Love it. That's a great way to end.
Yeah, I mean, there are many and I'm aware of them and they're doing great stuff, but I choose not to compare and look there so I can create my own path.
Yeah. Is it compare and despair, as they say, if you...
Yeah. There you have it.
Yeah. Oh, Suzanne, this was great. Thank you so much for coming on and for telling us more about your practice. And it's just so interesting to talk to you. If people want to follow your work, where is the best place to find you?
So I would say it's still happyhomes.co. So one word, either online website or Instagram, maybe more towards the Instagram. So as we transition and change the name, if people want to follow us there, that might be the best. And we also just put out a new, really cool, I don't want to call it quiz, but assessment kind of, is your home living up to its full potential? So maybe we can link that. People can take a little test and see how happy they are with their home, or is there potential for improvement. So that could be something exciting we just kind of launched, and could be fun to
Amazing.
go
We'll
on
send
that
you the link
journey.
to it, and we'll put it in the show notes so that people can do it if they want to.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I will leave you to it. And thanks again for coming on. It's been really lovely to speak to you.
Thank you for having me. And I see you soon.
Yeah, see you soon.
All right.
Thanks again to Susan for her insights. It's made me think a lot about what art I hang in my space and how what I regularly look at makes me feel. The painting I mentioned in the podcast about the fat naked lady in my dining area will still bring me joy, I'm quite sure. So she'll be staying put for the foreseeable future. Once again, if you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, all those sorts of things. And as a reminder, episodes drop every other Tuesday. Until then, be well. Understories was produced by Cloudfields and Kieran Fowler. The music is by Aviz, and the branding is by the marvelous Joe Jones. See you in a couple of weeks.